go. Game On is live in Orlando, Jacksonville, and Tallahassee, streaming across the Sunshine State on iHeartRadio. Also live right now on YouTube. Just search 96.9 The Game, all one word, and we'll pop right up. This beautiful mug right here. We got you till 6 p.m., our final show of the week, of course, because it's Friday. Brandon Kravitz, along with the prodigy of production, Jaden Grimes. Our protege, Aaron, is in studio as well. We might even let him touch some buttons later on in the show. Exciting stuff. It's one of those moments you never forget when you step into radio the first time somebody lets you touch that big space board that you've got in front of you.
Yeah, the most terrifying set of buttons I've ever looked at in my life.
It's like trying to land on the moon, and then you realize that you use about 25% of it. Kind of like our brains, you know?
Yeah.
Save that for a psychology course, perhaps down the road when football season is over, because it is coming to an end, folks. We are so close. Back in the saddle today after yesterday's international incident. Phenomenal call by Jake Chapman. You'll hear that in a moment, with Anthony Black soaring above the trees yesterday in Berlin. You can text in 50857. Hit us up in the Rage Cage. That's the iHeartRadio talk back. Love to hear the sound of your voice today, and you'll be hearing plenty of ours. We've got picks on top of picks. Bianchi, while he is not in studio this week, has submitted his official picks. I have those in pocket for you. Of course, not going to influence what side I take, but I do know what side he is on, and we're going to have a lot of disagreement, even though he's not here to actually disagree with me about it. So perhaps Jaden can try and come up with why Bianchi is feeling the way that he is about the plays that he has.
I can try my best. No one knows what's going on in his head.
That's a good point. Stone Cold Locks coming up later on in the show. Uncle Paulie is back. Chris Perkins from the Sun Sentinel is going to join us within the hour to talk about the Dolphins coaching search and the official Natty preview in the 4 o'clock hour. We are off on Monday, so we'll make sure to get that in for you today. A disjointed week, but a fun one. I feel like Bianchi is going to have to pry that microphone out of your dead, cold hands. I kind of feel like you're getting used to this co-host thing.
He might have to. He might have to walk in here and start producing.
There are few things in this world I trust less than Mike Bianchi on that board that you've got in front of you. Let's get the highlights and headlines. The Magic went into Berlin, and while it got dicey for a moment, the team was not going to let this one slip in front of Franz and Mo's super fans. Let's hear it.
He'll flip ahead to Tristan. De Silva's had some hop in his step today in his home country. They dump down to Mo. Hook shot up and good over Jaren Jackson Jr. with the left hand. We love that. The Juice Baron has arrived. Desmond Bain just past half court. Takes a screen from Franz. Gets it over to him on the left wing. Wagner attacking Aldama. Got to the 10-footer, and he knocked it down. That's money for Franz Wagner. Fourth quarter Franz. Come on now. They can't mess with that. 5-point Magic lead. 1:02 to play, and the Memphis Grizzlies want to chat.
Yeah, well, that was ridiculous. I had the rebound, and one thing about AB is when you see him running that floor, you got to get him the ball because he can do stuff like that on the break. And as soon as I seen him do that cross step, I knew he was going to go up to dunk it. And I don't know why all them guys jump, man. He's not the one you want to jump with, coming down the lane. So I've seen him do that before in practice and in games. And, he's a hell of a talent, man. He can do everything out there on the floor. And he's probably one of the best finishers at the rim at the guard position in the league, in my opinion.
High praise from Paolo Banchero, one of the dunks of the year, maybe one of the best dunks I've ever seen, given everything around him. The Magic won 118-111. Franz had missed more than a month of the high ankle sprain, but he was able to return in his native country and play alongside his brother for the first time in more than a year. The Magic are now 15-10 when Franz Wagner is in the lineup this year. And that wasn't even full Franz. That was just partial Franz, and you see the kind of impact that he had on the game. Dare I say, Jaden, the Magic are back.
The Magic are back.
Yes, back-to-back wins for the first time in over a month. Franz and Paolo out there, the two stars of the show, while you're still missing Jalen Suggs. Anthony Black has been so good this year that you kind of don't miss him as much as long as those other two are on the floor. You got the third scoring punch in Desmond Bain. He kind of comes and goes in terms of his scoring, but he's not like a complete void of space like the guy that they traded away in order to get him. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, my God, again. And, I mean, this time it was in a different jersey. 0 points on multiple attempts from KCP. But I think the Magic are back. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid right now.
I don't want to rain on the parade. Let's just hope everyone can stay on the court for the rest of the year. That's my biggest worry, and it will be my worry going forward.
That is a fair concern. Of course, you had the dunk heard around the world from Anthony Black. Let's hear that.
Jackson lost the handle. Ball deflected off the rim and ended up right in Paolo's hands. Now AB running the floor, and he threw it down on 4 Grizzlies. Anthony Black, an international incident. It's 109-107. Holy smokes.
Oh, what a call. Oh, what a call by Jake Chapman. That was fantastic. Had Jaden and I jumping up in our chairs, jumping out of our chairs here in this exact same room that we are broadcasting from right now. It was a fun day yesterday. Some baseball news for you, Jaden. We're going to have you break this one down. The New York Mets, a hasty pivot after failing to sign Kyle Tucker, have agreed to a 3-year, $126 million contract for an infielder, Bo Bichette, from the Toronto Blue Jays. Kyle Tucker is now a Dodger, which has shifted the conversation from, oh, what a fun offseason we've had in baseball. My Orioles signed Pete Alonso, to now people are talking about, is this sport actually fair? Saw Jeff Passan talking about that on ESPN. Everybody's kind of wondering, like, why are we going to even bother watching the sport this year when we already know who the champion is going to be? The Dodgers are already plus 220 to win the World Series. For perspective on that, so the Dodgers right now, we are months away from the start of the season. They're plus 220 to win the championship. The Seahawks had a bye week. They're 2 rounds away from the Super Bowl. They're touchdown favorites against the 49ers this weekend. They're plus 280 to win the Super Bowl. And they're on the doorstep of it. The Dodgers, the season hasn't even started yet. They're plus 220 to win the championship. So a lot of people wondering what this sport needs to do, a potential lockout looming, and perhaps some more parameters in place so that other teams can be as competitive as what we've seen from the Dodgers. I say boo-hoo. This is the way the baseball's always been. Get over it. And if you want to beat the Dodgers at their own game, reach into your pocket and pay for it. It's not just the money. The Mets have been spending a ton of money for years. The Yankees have been doing it forever, and they haven't been as successful as the Dodgers. It's not just about spending money. It's about spending the right money on the right individuals, and right now the Dodgers are creating a mini dynasty because of the way that they're doing it. This was a big one yesterday. Federal prosecutors charged 26 men with alleged conspiracy to manipulate games in college basketball. In one example, 2024 DePaul was playing Georgetown. DePaul had a rough first half, went into the locker room down 13, but one of the players on DePaul was pretty happy about it. A betting syndicate had 4 DePaul players on their side. This is from what the prosecutors had said. They had arranged for 4 of the players on DePaul to shave points so that Georgetown would cover the first half spread. And then in return, those 4 players received $40,000 each the very next day. So I guess that's the scheme. And there are a lot of different mini college basketball teams that were a part of this, where the guys in the syndicate would pay the players on these college teams to shave points, and then those guys in the syndicate would bet the favorite because they're confident that the other team is going to take a dive, and that's the way that they would go about doing this. It's a massive story, and obviously is quite seedy in its nature, but that's just the surface of it, just to give you an idea of what we missed yesterday. Your thoughts, Jaden?
I just think it's so stupid because you look at the NBA, you see what's going on. You know bettors are going to be looking closely at any type of basketball games because of what's happened in the NBA. This says it's been going on since 2022.
Yeah.
This has been happening forever.
So this is where I think the legalization of sports betting actually helps, because then it shines a light on shady behavior like this, things that we would just not know. These individuals, this guy Fairley and Hennon are 2 of the individuals that were indicted on this, that were part of that syndicate. They went into a Pennsylvania casino. So they did this legally. Went into a Pennsylvania casino and bet $198,000 on a Chinese basketball game. That they had the inside on point shaving within that league as well. So it wasn't just college basketball, it was also Chinese basketball. Don't you think that would raise some red flags? You're in Pennsylvania taking a bet for nearly $200,000 on Chinese basketball.
Right? Wouldn't you block that instantaneously? Like, that's insane.
Well, but that's the thing, is that I guess it is possible that the sports books could do that. From what I read, these guys weren't necessarily great at what they did. They did have this scheme that made them a lot of money, but casinos, as long as you're a lifetime loser, they're going to take your money no matter what you bet. You might win here and there, but if you're a loser, they're not going to kick you out. If you're a long-term loser, they want your giant bets because they know eventually they're going to cash some tickets on their end and keep your money off of it. So I think that's what has gone on. But without the legalization, you would have no idea. This would just be happening behind in some dark alley somewhere. And, I'm glad that this stuff is brought to light. Of course, there are those out there that are going to say this is why you shouldn't bet on sports. I am not, as many of you well know, if you've listened to me for any length of time, I'm not going to be the person that says that. I would just suggest perhaps not betting on Northern Kentucky basketball
Or Buffalo.
or Robert Morris or Buffalo. It's not a bad idea to maybe leave some of these teams off the docket. I've said that there are alterations that I would make. I think even in the NBA, guys, end of the bench guys, the Jonte Porters of the world when he was on the Raptors, that guy doesn't need to be available on Hard Rock or DraftKings or FanDuel, and sometimes they're not. I look at this stuff every single day. There are Magic players that we are very familiar with that Hard Rock doesn't offer. And I feel like that's probably the way that it should be. Think about who's going to be enticed. I mean, college basketball students are the easiest to come across in that regard, but let's think about it from the NBA perspective. You're going to get Paolo Banchero making $50 million a year. You're going to what? You're going to give him $40K? That's nothing.
Right.
He craps that for breakfast. Now, you might be able to get a second-round pick that's still on a rookie deal, but all these books have to do is not offer those players. And boom, you've skirted the issue as far as the player props go. Now this is different. They're betting point spreads. It's never going to be perfect, but the fact that it's legal allows these things to be contained. And it's a very seedy story, though. $198,000 on Chinese basketball. Up next, a look at the most valuable piece of property that you own. Text in 50857. We want to hear from you on a free-for-all Friday. Back with more Game On after this. Mike Bianchi will be back in the saddle on Tuesday. Until then, the kids get to play, and we're going to continue to do that with all of our game heads, our loyal legion of sports fans. You can become one yourself by searching Game-Heads on Facebook, where the show never ends. One of my favorite game heads, Kevin Krager with LPT Realty. He joins us on the hotline right now. Kevin, how's your week been so far?
It has been busy and cold.
Is it harder to go through the showing process when it's like 35 degrees outside? I know that for a lot of people that come from the Northeast, that might sound like a really weak complaint, but I'm not built for this anymore. I was born in the Northeast, but I'm far removed from that now. Does it make the process any less enjoyable for you?
It makes it hard to get out of bed, but yeah, it makes it a little more difficult because, a lot of people don't want to spend as much time walking around the outside of a house, or if there's no power in a house, it's cold in there and people just don't want to spend as much time in there. So, but I power through.
So I sent you a task earlier today. I love a good Mount Rushmore, a good power ranking, all of that. Great for sports talk. So we've got music ready for you and everything. Do you have prepared your power ranking, thinking like a top 5? And you can decide how you want to do this, whether you want to go 1 through 5 or you want to do a slow reveal of 5 through 1, which can be, nice for the dramatic impact of it. The most important aspects of buying a new home. Are you ready, Kevin?
I am. We'll go 5 through 1, and I think my list might surprise people with a placement of one of my key things that people need to consider when buying or selling a house.
This is perfect. This is like Stone Cold locks before 5 o'clock. Here we go. Hit the music. It is Kevin Krager from LPT Realty's Power Ranking, the most important aspects of buying a new home. Take it away, Kevin.
The top 5, starting at number 5, is financing terms and the risk associated with whatever mortgage you select. That can affect you for the next 10 or 15 years, depending on how long you intend to stay in your home. So you start getting into some variable rate loans and some interest only, seconds and stuff. Those can come back to bite you in the end. So make sure that you really understand what your mortgage says and what your responsibilities are going to be for the next 2 decades at least.
All right. I am jotting these down as we go so that I can keep track. Go ahead. Number 4.
Number 4, resale value and marketability of the house that you are buying. I get people all the time telling me, I want land and I don't care what the house is. I don't care if it's a manufactured home or a mobile home. And I bring that up and I say, I get that, I understand, and I can appreciate it, but how long are you going to be there? Is this your forever place where maybe later you're going to build a house, or are you going to ask me to sell this thing in 5 or 10 years? Because that thing may depreciate rather than appreciate because it is a home that just doesn't hold its value as well. So really pay attention to that. What is it going to be worth in 5 years? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Is it going to stay the same? Because if it goes down or stays the same, it's going to cost you money in the end.
So how do people know that, though, how do they know or have any confidence? I guess you can't really know anything, but how can you have confidence that the house that you're looking at has resale value?
Well, that would bring us to number 3.
Very well done. You are a true radio professional, Kevin.
That brings us to number 3. Thank you. Which brings us to hiring a reliable, knowledgeable, and accessible real estate professional. Those are the people that are going to guide you through this process. I've said it before on your show. This is quite possibly the largest purchase you're ever going to make in your lifetime, and it needs to be scrutinized. It needs to be handled by someone that knows what they're doing and that cares about not only their reputation, but your money.
What's number 2?
Number 2 is you have to determine what you can afford. Monthly price versus your purchase price. And I could go on for quite a bit about that, but one of the big differences is people will look at a house at, say, like $250,000 that needs some work. Let's say the roof is 10 or 12 years old and the AC is dilapidated. Maybe the water heater's bad. Maybe you've got some deferred maintenance that hasn't been taken care of. That is going to drive the cost of your insurance up, whereas maybe I could find a house, or your agent could find you a house for $285 or $295 or whatever. That sounds like it's a lot more, but your insurance is going to be lower because let's say that other house has a new roof and a new AC and a new water heater, or it's been repiped. Some of these things that will drive down the cost of your taxes, your insurance, will directly affect your mortgage. So don't always get stuck on one or the other. You need to find that sweet spot in the middle of what I can afford monthly versus what I should invest my money into.
How often do you see people that are going through the process, they can't find a house they love, and then they finally do, but it is pretty considerably above their budget, and then they start selling themselves on money they don't have?
Way too often. A lot of times I'll get people that'll say, well, my pension is going to hit in 2 years, or I'm expecting this big payout in 2 years. And the old adage, a bird in the hand's worth two in the bush. I always tell my clients, what can you afford today? We're not going to go over that. What can you afford today? And then in 5 years, when you get your pension or you get that medical payout, you call me, we'll sell this house, we'll get you into something new.
Beautiful. That goes back to number 3, by the way. Hire a reliable pro. What's number 1, Kevin?
Yes. Number 1 for me is location. Location. And I don't mean just like a neighborhood, but, you can pick a neighborhood, but there may be, say Lake Mary. You pick Lake Mary. Don't get stuck on just one neighborhood, but we need to select a location because I can remodel your kitchen. I can remodel your bathroom. I can put new floors in. You can have a pool installed. But the things that you can't remodel, your commute, your flood zone, your school zone, your shopping, your entertainment, all of those things are what they are. That's the infrastructure, and you can't change them. So make sure that where we are shopping for your house is where you want to live.
What was number 5 again? I can't read my own handwriting here.
Number 5 was financing terms and risks. So just understanding what your mortgage is, what your expectations are going to be for the next, I usually say at least decade, sometimes 2 decades, but, most people are moving every 8 to 10 years. They're either upgrading or downgrading or moving locations for work or kids or whatever. So, but, number 5 is financing in terms and managing that risk, making sure you understand the paperwork that you're signing. And number 5 can be assisted by number 3 because number 3, most likely, your reliable agent is going to hand you off to one of their preferred partners that they work with all the time, so that you have a lender that understands what I need for my clients, and then will understand what my clients need.
It really does all go back to number 3, and it debatably should be higher with how much everything is kind of tied to the middle there. But number 5, financing terms. Number 4, resale value, marketability. Number 3, hire a reliable pro like Kevin Krager. Number 2, affordability, and number 1, location. He is Kevin Krager with LPT Realty, one of the top 25 producing agents in Central Florida. Kevin, great stuff today. A phenomenal top 5, very strong. You should get this list laminated and hand it out to your clients. Thanks for hopping on.
His own head.
Yes, indeed. Thanks so much, Kevin.
All right, Happy New Year.
Up next, who's in the driver's seat for the Miami Dolphins head coaching job? We'll check in with Chris Perkins, Fins Insider, on the way next. The Miami Dolphins hot after a new head coach, a couple of weeks after firing Mike McDaniel, and they are on the trail. We are as well. That's why we bring in Chris Perkins, Miami Dolphins columnist over at the Sun-Sentinel. Chris, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm starting to lose a little faith in the Dolphins, but I'm sure we'll get into that. Otherwise, I'm doing good.
What the hell took you so long? What are you talking about?
I know, right? Yeah, I know, right. I'm the last one on the bus, right?
How disappointed are Dolphins fans that it looks like we're like 99.9% sure John Harbaugh will not be the next head coach?
Yeah, I don't think it was realistic. There were some fans that were kind of living in that fantasy world of, hey, maybe Harbaugh will come, but really, realistically, why would he come? They're kind of in salary cap hell. They don't have a quarterback. The GM is unproven. The owner is, he's who knows where his head is. He's trying to redevelop Palm Beach County. So it's a situation where if you have skins on the wall, if you're Harbaugh, maybe if you're Mike McCarthy, who has a Super Bowl victory, you might not be looking at the Dolphins. We'll see. There's another class of coaches who have experience, Robert Saleh and Kevin Stefanski. They would be good for the Dolphins, but after that, it's kind of what you've had since Dave Ronstadt, a bunch of first-time NFL head coaches.
With how hot it seems Mike McDaniel is I know it's a different level, but it seems like this guy's taken offensive coordinator interviews at nearly every stop that has availability. Do you think that there's any regret that maybe the Dolphins let go of him too soon?
No, there shouldn't be, because look, to me, I think it was ridiculous that he made it to Thursday. Mike McDaniel should have been released Monday morning, Black Monday, because look, for all the offensive innovation that he has with the pre-snap motion and the jet sweep and all of that, at the end of the day, his teams are still 5-22 against playoff teams. All this stuff doesn't work against good teams. And so, it's nice to be creative, but if it doesn't work against good teams, what good is it? So, I think that Mike is going to be a better head coach in his second stop than he was with the Dolphins. What I think would be great for Mike McDaniel would be to go up to Detroit as the offensive coordinator, and you get Jared Goff and Gibbs and Montgomery and Penei Sewell on your offensive line, and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams and Sam Laporta. You can do some real damage up there in Detroit. You can rebuild kind of how you want to do player relations. Do I want to really empower players that much? Do I want to get more physicality and more power in my offense? And then the second time around, you'll be better equipped as a head coach. So that's what I think would be an ideal landing place for Mike McDaniel. You learn some toughness and some bite the kneecaps mentality from Dan Campbell. Then you're ready to go back out into the head coaching world.
Yeah, tend to agree with all of that. We're talking to Chris Perkins, columnist over at the Sun-Sentinel. He covers the Miami Dolphins very closely. A lot of people talking about the leader of men type of coach that this Miami Dolphins team needs. That is one thing that Mike McDaniel seemed to not be, was that Harbaugh is a good example. Tomlin's a good example. Yep. Dan Campbell's a good example. A guy that walks in the room and has a very real dominant presence about him. Is that, in your opinion, the most important thing that the Dolphins should be going after here, that should be at the top of their priority list?
Yeah, and you know what? And I go a step further with it. I say this whole organization needs an attitude change, because I think the Dolphins organization settles for kind of the flashy stuff and kind of the statistical achievements as opposed to what's real. And what's real in this league are playoff wins. The Dolphins didn't have any under Mike McDaniel. And I wrote last week or 2 weeks ago that if I'm Steve Ross, I'm asking every GM candidate and every head coach candidate, and of course they have a GM now, John Eric Sullivan, but I would have asked them, what did you think of our 2023 season? And if any of them said it was successful, get the hell out of my office. We don't need that participation trophy attitude in our organization again. We will no longer give contract extensions for having the top offense in the NFL, especially when that top offense went 1-6 against playoff teams that year and only averaged 16 points per game. I think the Dolphins need to get people in the organization, from GM to head coach to quarterback to special teams players, who focus on playoff wins. And I'll say this also, I don't want to dump on Mike McDaniel in his biggest moment of the season, but after that Buffalo victory, you remember what he did after the game. He drove by this bar on Fort Lauderdale Beach, the Elbow Room, where Buffalo Bills gather, and he kind of, drove by and kind of gloated. And that's a great thing from Mike. That's a great sense of humor, and that shows a lot. But it shows a lot on the other side, too, because it's only 1 of 17, right? That game, that victory got you to, I can't even remember, 3-7 or whatever it was. And Buffalo has still beaten you in 7 of 9 games. And so that's kind of what I mean, the attitude of this organization. They settle for, a good regular season victory or nice job having the number 1 offense. No, you need an attitude cleansing off season to where you focus on winning playoff games. And that becomes what it's all about.
Damn, hire Chris Perkins. I'm ready to run through a wall right now. How much clamoring is there for Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator of the Rams, because he's had a lot of success. And I'm really impressed with what he's done with that defense. It's not loaded with stars, so clearly there's some good coaching going on. But there's an obvious connection here with that last name. So is that a guy that Dolphins fans seem to be pretty hot after?
Yeah, it is. And I think, look, he's done a good job with that Rams defense. I would have no problem with him coming. I would wonder if that Shula last name would put too much pressure on him, if it would raise expectations to an unrealistic level. And I've been saying that, and I said that to a reader who emailed me about Shula, and I said that, and he emailed back, and he said, I've been thinking about what you said for a couple of days. And he said, but it can't be any worse than, say, LeBron James coming into the NBA thinking that, everybody's saying he's going to be the next king. And I was like, you know what? You're right. People do have to deal with unrealistic expectations. If you're coaching at Alabama or whatever, you have to deal with unrealistic expectations. So maybe I'm making too much out of that. But I do think it could be a factor. But I like Shula. I think he would be a good head coach. I also like Stefanski. I also like Saleh. But as I said, it's attitude. I don't care if you're an offensive coach, defensive coach, first-time head coach. Bring that unrelenting attitude to the Dolphins. That's what this organization needs more than anything.
Last thing for you, Chris. Do you have any idea whatsoever? Have you heard any whispers about who the leader in the clubhouse is so far? Has anybody stepped out in front in terms of the candidacy for this head coaching job? I know Saleh, Stefanski, as you mentioned, those guys have been interviewed. Is there a favorite?
No, there's not. And when I said I'm losing faith in the Dolphins, here's what I meant. How many Dolphins does it take to name a head coach? I mean, you've got a 7-person interview committee, right? And then you've contacted, 10 people, 11 maybe, including Harbaugh? Like, how many people are you going to interview and how many people are you going to have make this decision? This might be a record in the NFL for number of voices you're going to listen to and be chiming in. And my fear is they're delving into same Dolphins buffoonery, right? We've heard the story from Darren Waller about how Mike McDaniel was fired, right? That Darren Waller, the tight end, is doing the exit interview with Mike McDaniel, and Steve Ross comes knocking on the door on Thursday, 3 days after he did the season wrap-up interview, and after they let him believe he was going to be involved to some extent to hiring the GM. Steve Ross comes knocking on the door during a player exit interview. They bungled that, and I hope that they're not on their way to bungling this coach interview by contacting all these people and interviewing all these people and having all these people make the decision. I would have probably interviewed 5 or 6 people, have 2 back for a second round of interviews, and have 3 or 4 people making the decision. So I worry that I thought the Dolphins did very well of cleaning house Chris Greer and eventually Mike McDaniel, and we'll see about Tua. I would think that he's going to be gone. I think that's good, but I hope they're not delving back into typical Dolphins buffoonery here.
Yeah, you didn't mention his name, but I was very I got to raise my eyebrow at the idea that Troy Aikman is somehow involved in this. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's not like they don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback on speed dial down in Miami. I don't understand this.
I like the Troy Aikman thing because he's a voice from outside the organization. He's somebody who gets around the league as an analyst. He has a lot of connections around the league. I don't know that Marino really wants to be that heavily involved. Dan, you remember when Dan became an executive for like 48 hours and he said, screw this is too much hard work. I think it's kind of the same way. I think he really loves being Dan Marino and shaking hands and kissing babies. But when it comes to the grind, I don't think he wants to be up there for 12 hours a day, and I don't blame him. I do not blame Dan at all. So I kind of like getting Aikman, but, you got this other voice, Dan Silman, who is Steve Ross's son-in-law and is the heir apparent to the organization. And, Tom Garfinkel, the president, Brandon Shore, the salary typologist, Steve Ross, John Eric Sullivan, the GM. It's just so many voices. I don't mind Aikman, but there's just too many voices here.
At Chris Perk is how you can follow him on Twitter, Miami Dolphins columnist over at the Sun Sentinel. Chris, great info. Thanks so much for the time on this Friday afternoon.
All right, guys, have a good weekend.
Coming up next, we're going to get into your texts, your talkbacks. Also, it's time for Polapalooza right here on Game On. Don't go anywhere. Busy first hour of the show, and business is picking up. Text in 50857. You can also hit us up on the iHeartRadio talkback. Just tap that microphone icon while you're listening on iHeart, and you have 30 seconds to leave us a message, anything that is on your mind. It is a free-for-all Friday, so come one, come all, whatever it is. So you want to text us about ask us about weird habits that Jaden and I have, how we got into radio, our favorite song, whatever it is.
Nepotism,
old relationships, how we really feel about Bianchi. 50857. You can text in. It's time. It's a little late in the hour for it, but we'll do it anyway. Time for our daily coach quote. Our daily source of inspiration and motivation, and this is one that I'm excited about. This is one of my favorite quotes. Today's is about ownership. A sense of ownership is a powerful thing. No one washes a rental car. What do you think, Jaden?
I love it. Yeah,
It's so simple.
You don't care about it if you don't own it.
Exactly. When have you ever seen somebody with a rental car rolling through the car wash?
Probably never.
The only time you would do it is if you were told when you rented the car, hey, this needs to look spick and span when you bring it back. And I don't even think that's anything that rental car places say. So you wouldn't do it. You're not going to spend time and energy on things that you don't have ownership in, and nobody washes a rental car. Text in 50857, free for all Friday. You can also hit us up on the iHeartRadio talkback. Jesse, what you got?
Hey, Kravitz. In regards to your record against Bianchi in football picks, I'm going to tell you, congratulations on your success, young man. You hold your head up. You have had a most magnificent season. You did a great job out there today. Just hold your head up, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, Orlando, you keep it going. We got another season next year.
Jesse clearly doing his best Lynn Jones impression, talking to Liam Cohen after they got dusted by the Bills. I have not had the most remarkable season against Bianchi. The Jags did much better against Buffalo than I've done against Mike Bianchi this year in football picks, unfortunately. But I guess I still have time to catch up. Kind of running out of real estate here with how many games we have left. Coming up in a moment, our favorite segment of the week, Pola-Palooza, right here on Game On. We'll pause for a moment, let the talented folks at Fox Sports Radio get you all caught up with the latest in sports. Back at it in 60 seconds. It's time for Bianchi's favorite segment of the week. Now, he's not here for it, but he's here in spirit. Time for Pola-Palooza. Let's go ahead and, that's right. We have a new producer. Aaron is touching the buttons. Now, the pressure's on you because we have music that we have to hit here. So let's go ahead and do it. Pola-Palooza time here. On Game On. Don't become another number. Become part of the family. Burn Pest Control, family owned and operated. Over 30 years of experience in the termite and pest control industry. Contact Joe directly, 321-297-7985, or go to burnpest.com. Before we get to the polls, how about this text that we got earlier in the show, Jaden? Weren't you the one that had a parlay on women's basketball and a tennis match in Europe between two guys that you had never heard of? Or was that the other degenerate gambler, Tazi? Tazi's my former co-host in the afternoons, and that does sound like a bet that he would make. I don't believe that's one that I have ever placed. While I can be considered in the degenerate realm because of how many bets I place throughout the course of a week, I'm pretty mainstream with my bets. I'm trying to think of what the most obscure bet I've ever placed would even be.
My dad did. He used to bet on table tennis.
Oh my
like
God!
China
Yeah,
table
he
tennis.
has told me about this. Like the one that they offer there on Hard Rock.
Yeah.
When all the games are over, they'll send you a notification like, "Hey, you still need a fix."
Oh, we got table tennis.
And not only can you bet table tennis, I believe you can actually watch the table tennis matches on the app.
Can you really?
I think you can.
I'm gonna start betting
I've
on table tennis.
I think just to see what would happen. I think I may have put $1 on one time, but I'm not even 100% sure that that's true. But I'm pretty mainstream with this stuff. No, that was not me. Let's get to the polls. Pollapalooza time. Poll number 1. Was the Anthony Black dunk in Germany one of the best that you've ever seen in an NBA game? 2 options. Yes, for sure, or no, wasn't even top 10. Where do you land on this personally?
Best dunk I've ever seen.
Wow, he did not hesitate, my friend.
Nope, best dunk ever.
So here's my thing. I think it makes for one of the best, perhaps the best poster ever because of the bodies around him. But if you think about the dunk itself, I can't believe that I'm about to do this because this was awesome yesterday. But when you start stacking it up with historical dunks like Blake Griffin with the Clippers many, many years ago, that's the best one I've ever seen in game. That comes to mind first. Anthony Black didn't really do anything special.
I see your point.
His dunk was his dunk wasn't anything that we haven't seen this year. What made it unique was the image of 4 guys jumping up to block him unsuccessfully as he skies to the rim. So I think it makes for the best poster. If you were to put that up in your room, it would look amazing. But is it one of the best dunks I've ever seen? To me, not that I have a rolling list of my top 10 in my head, but it would not crack my top 10.
It did remind me of the Kobe Bryant picture where he's doing a layup with like 5 defenders on him. That's exactly what that reminded me of, though.
So you said for sure. I said not even top 10. Yes, for sure. 70% of the vote. So people definitely living in the moment there. Poll question number 2. Do you view Mike Tomlin as overrated or underrated as you assess his coaching career? For me, I feel like he's properly rated would be the best way to answer this, but that's no fun. So we only gave you 2 options. You have to pick overrated or underrated. I think overrated is probably the right answer because of the lack of playoff success. This guy got to hang around in Pittsburgh. It's only because he coached the Steelers was he able to coach this team as long as he did. Being above 500 is really hard to do. That's not a reason to keep your job. Winning playoff games is a reason to keep your job. He hasn't done that in a very long time. So I think the amount of patience that Pittsburgh showed, to me, says more about the Steelers organization than it does Mike Tomlin as a coach. I like him as a coach, but if I had to choose overrated or underrated, I think he tilts more overrated.
I've been saying it all week. Overrated.
65% of the vote agree with us. Overrated. I love Mike Tomlin, so it pains me to say that. And I do think that after a guy loses his job or steps away from the job, by the way, by all reports, he is the one that stepped down. They were not going to fire him.
Yeah, I've heard. I forgot who said it. Someone on TV said they hang out with him all the time. They go on vacation. He said it seemed like it was his last year from the beginning.
He just burnt out. And I think that that's admirable to look at this job and say, this is great. It's not bringing me the same sense of joy that it did in the past. I'm going to step down from it. When it starts to feel like a grind, whatever you do, especially if you don't have to be doing it, because at that point he's a very wealthy man. He doesn't need to be coaching in order to feed himself. So, yeah, step away from it, and he did that. But he deserved his flowers that day. Still, if you're looking at the overall body of his career, It's not like he stacks up with the other coaches that are around him because of his lack of playoff success. He coached for as long as Belichick did. Belichick laps him. Andy Reid laps him in terms of playoff success. It's not even close. Poll question number 3, which AFC quarterback do you have the least confidence in this weekend? So before you answer this, let me make my case for why you should feel a lack of confidence for all 4 quarterbacks in the AFC. Because this isn't who's the best quarterback. And I feel like that's how people probably voted on this, though I haven't clicked on it yet. Josh Allen, Bo Nix, C.J. Stroud, Drake May. Here are the reasons to feel unconfident for any one of these players. For Josh Allen, as great as he is, his wide receiving core is completely demolished. Who does he have? Khalil Shakir, a couple tight ends, James Cook is a running back. I mean, we've run out of options. Gabe Davis is out. Even the Terrell Shavers hit the IR, and those guys weren't even good. And he doesn't have them. Josh Palmer's out, so he has no one to throw the ball to. He himself is not 100%. He walked into the Jacksonville game with a foot issue. He walked out with a minor concussion and slammed his finger on an offensive lineman's helmet. So he's got his own problems. And the Denver defense is one of the best in the NFL. Then you have Bo Nix. He's Bo Nix. I don't need to explain that any further.
Nothing there.
C.J. Stroud. Stroud looked awful in that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That defense carried the Texans to a blowout victory. So not a lot of reasons to feel confident in him. Now Drake May. Drake May's a legitimate MVP candidate. But look who he's going up against. The Texans defense, to me, is the best defensive unit in the NFL. Certainly the best one that is still alive. They are going to fluster him. The Chargers did a good job at that. The Patriots, even though they won by double digits, not all that successful offensively against the Chargers. The Texans' defense is twice as good as they are. So there's reasons to not be confident in Drake May also. So now that I've laid out the case, Josh Allen, Bo Nix, C.J. Stroud, Drake May, who are you the least confident in this weekend?
I don't even have to think about it. It's C.J. Stroud. I watched that Steelers game in full, and I've never felt so disappointed in myself because I was so high on C.J. Stroud, and I got nothing in return for being so high on him, let me tell you.
Well, you and everybody else, 69% of the vote on C.J. Stroud, 15% tied for Josh Allen and Bo Nix, and 0% for Drake May. So that means the most confidence in Drake May. Hard to argue with the way that vote played itself out. By the way, my vote on that, who do I feel the least confident in this weekend? I think I have to go with you guys. It's probably C.J. Stroud. Poll question number 4. Does the recent point-shaving scheme in college basketball make you any less confident about the integrity of sports betting in general? Yes, it's shady. No, this is an isolated incident. Or I don't bet. Those are the 3 options.
Well, I bet doesn't mean I win, but I bet. I think it's very shady.
So you say yes, it's shady. This makes you less confident when you go to place a wager. You'll feel less confident in the integrity of that bet.
Yeah.
Because of stories like this.
This is like the 3rd or 4th scandal to happen within, 4 months, 5 months? It's like a scandal a month at this point.
So my stance on this is no, it's not an isolated incident, so I don't necessarily believe that because Jaden is right. This is not the first time that this has happened, so that was probably not the best way to word that option. But to me, the answer is no. I think as long as you're not betting on Icelandic basketball and low-level college basketball and things of that nature, I think you're safe in the sports betting endeavor. I don't think NFL teams are going to be hit with this. I don't think Major League Baseball teams are going to be hit with this at a really high level. And I don't think that star players in the NBA are going to be either. I think you're safe there. Now, we have had some players like Emmanuel Clase was a baseball player that got popped. It's not like nobody's immune to this. And I'm not trying to act ignorant to it. But I still don't think this is ever going to become a widespread issue to the point where you can't be confident in placing the bets that you place as long as you stay within the mainstream. Once you veer outside of that, you're on your own. You start betting Chinese basketball, that's your landscape, and no, you should not trust that. Or low DePaul basketball, like if that's how you're spending your time, then expect to be screwed on the other end. I say no. Jaden says yes. 53% say yes, it's shady. 26% say no, isolated incident. And 20% say that they don't bet in the first place. Poll question number 5. How many years of complete irrelevance would you be able to stomach if you could guarantee that your favorite team won a title this year? So I ask this question specifically for you.
I know.
This is specifically about the Miami Hurricanes. Now, you can apply this to anybody, but how many years of irrelevance would you be able to stomach if you could guarantee yourself a championship? So let's use a specific example. Monday night, Miami beats Indiana. I'm guaranteeing you that you will be able to experience the excitement and exuberance of that happening. However, for the next how many years after that would you be able to stomach irrelevance for the joy of that one championship? Wow. The options, by the way, maybe 2 to 3 years, 5 or more, 10 or more, or none. You're not cool with that at all.
Maybe 2 to 3 years. I'm going to be call me crazy. I'm going to be so real with you here. My whole life, the Hurricanes have been irrelevant. I've had lived that. I would be just fine being in the playoffs, even going to the national championship another time and losing, just to be in the main stage for once. Like I just enjoy being here.
Yeah. So 2 or 3 for you. I'm the same. Most of my team has been irrelevant for my entire life, so I'll say 10 or more. 40% say 10 or more years of irrelevance. Just give me one championship. 33% say 5 or more. 26% say maybe 2 or 3. The funny part about that is that if your team wins, those are the fans that end up becoming the most passionate and the most angsty about their next win. And yet here you sit, most of you, voting on 10 or more years. So that means if the Magic win a championship, I shouldn't hear anything from anybody for 10 years.
Yeah.
And we know that that's not the case.
I would never want that for my team.
Up next, our official preview of Miami versus Indiana right here on Game On. Don't move a muscle.
how big of a role is he going to play, in the football team going forward and just the continued success of the University of Miami?
Yeah, he's the massive reason of why I was, number one, I had the privilege of being offered the opportunity, but then eventually choosing to return, because that was a difficult decision in terms of just life, family dynamics. I've been a selfish son of a bitch my whole life, so it is what it is. But it's always been Miami. It always has been, but it had to be right, and not in terms of me and my contract. And I'm not into all the money stuff. It's just not like football, and being a Miami Hurricanes always been everything to me. And the bottom line is, I feel like anyone that played here, we were young knuckleheads, man. We were, and Coach Jimmy Johnson, Erickson, all these guys, they shaped us. They changed our lives forever. So I owe Miami, and I think all of us that went through here, we owe Miami, and it had to be done right. But we had to have a man right at the head of the whole thing that was going to be able to provide us with all the resources to make it Miami come into modern day football, because Miami had lagged behind. Miami had completely abandoned ship, and let's call it what it is, man. I couldn't go to the grave without Miami being Miami again. That's the bottom line. And that's what they shaped us. They changed our lives forever. So I owe Miami, and I think Miami, and I Miami. Behind. Miami had completely abandoned ship, and let's call it all the resources to make it Miami come into thing that was going to be able to provide us with all the resources to make it Miami come into modern day football, because Miami had lagged behind. Miami had completely abandoned ship. With all the resources was going to be able to provide right at the head of the whole thing that was going to be that we had to have a man right. They shaped us. They changed our lives forever. So I owe Miami, and I think all of us, Coach Jimmy Johnson, Erickson, these guys, they shaped Coach Jimmy Johnson. The grave without Miami being Miami again. That's the bottom line. Being Miami again. And go to the grave without Miami being Miami again. That's the bottom line. Coach Jimmy Johnson, Erickson, all these guys, they shaped us. They changed our lives forever. So I owe Miami, and I think all of us that went through here, we owe Miami, and it had to be done right. But we had to have a man right at the head of the whole thing that was going to be able to provide us with all the resources to make it Miami come into modern day football, because Miami had Coach Jimmy Johnson, all the resources to make it Miami come into modern day football, because Miami had lagged behind. Miami had completely abandoned ship. Coach Jimmy Johnson, Erickson, all these guys, they shaped us. They changed our lives forever. So I owe Miami, and I think all of us that went through here, we owe Miami, and it had to be done right. But we had to have a man right at the head of the whole thing that was going to be able to provide us with all the resources to make it Miami come into modern day football, because Miami had lagged behind. Miami had completely abandoned ship, and let's call it what it is, man. I couldn't go to the grave without Miami being Miami again. That's the bottom line.
That's commitment right there. Mario Cristobal bringing the U back. Even if they lose on Monday, I think the national championship win at this point for Canes fans, for the university itself. I mean, Cristobal's not going to say this out loud because he's got a game that he's trying to win, but it's gravy. They made it to the national championship. That in and of itself. This is a team that's been struggling to get to the ACC title game, which, by the way, they struggled to do again this year. But to get to the national championship game, that's bringing Miami back, and that's providing confidence moving forward that they could possibly do it again, and that is something to hang your hat on. Fridays get fiery at Wing House with Lingerie Friday, where the Wing House girls turn up the heat while serving up your favorite wings. It's the ultimate way to kick off your weekend. Hell, you can watch the national championship game there as well. Great food, bold flavors, unforgettable views. Whether you're celebrating or just unwinding, Friday nights at Wing House, always a vibe. Wing House, good food, beautifully served. So we're off on Monday, so we're going to consider this our official national championship preview. Everything that I feel you need to know for your entertainment, your wagering, your just so you sound smart in front of the people that you're watching the game with. Just to add proper context to how rare this national championship game is. Prior to the season starting, the odds suggested that Miami alone had a 0.3% chance to win the championship. Not a 3%, a 0.3% chance to win the championship. Indiana had a 0.1% chance to win the championship. One of those two things is going to happen. And I can't do the math on this, but that just imagine how astronomical the number would be to predict preseason that Miami's playing Indiana in the national championship game. It would be like mega ball lottery type numbers in order to have that prediction.
Yeah, I don't think anyone picked either of these teams to be in the national championship, and I think that's why it's probably the best national championship. No, I'm not even like trying to be a homer here. I think that's one of the reasons why this is going to be the best national championship in a very long time. It's so refreshing.
The matchup itself is very refreshing. I think to talk about this at a very casual level, the color combination also very refreshing. I like the fact that we're getting that Miami green with the Hoosiers maroon. I can't stand these, like when Indiana was playing Alabama, two programs that look the exact same, not aesthetically pleasing.
There's so many saying like maroon.
And we've got a lot of reds, with Ohio State and Georgia. So to get something different like this, for all of those reasons, for the uniqueness of it, the color combos, the Miami playing in Miami, and yeah, all of that. It is awesome. Is it the best ever? I'm going to have to wait until I see this thing play out, because we've seen a lot of really bad national championships lately, and if this one goes sideways too, then it just becomes another Georgia TCU. I remember I was so excited. I was so excited for that national championship.
I don't think it's going to be anywhere near like that game. I think Miami's going to at least put up 14.
Georgia was, I'll never forget it, it's the bet that I regret the most in my life, was betting TCU plus 14.5 in that game. And that was over, I think before I sat down, that bet was dead.
Yeah.
It was
probably dead in the first quarter.
It was dead well before the end of the first quarter. TCU looked like a high school team going up against Georgia. Georgia players just flying around everywhere. I mean, it's a little bit like Indiana and Oregon. Oregon kind of looked like that too, just a complete fish out of water. They looked like they hadn't prepared at all for the game, and Indiana's over here looking like one of the best teams that's ever been put together. That was a one-game sample. We'll see what it looks like here. This is, so for the third time in 4 seasons, the spread in the national championship game is at least 8.5 points. 6 straight favorites have won and covered. So that's my point in these blowouts. You've had massive spreads, and you've had favorites covering. So it hasn't just been, these games are going sideways. It's been predictably sideways. Like, go back to that TCU-Georgia game. It'd be one thing if TCU was the one that won 62-7. You'd go, oh, my God, nobody saw this coming. But, yeah, people kind of did see it coming, and then it played out that way very early on in the game. That is what we cannot have happen here. So, a little bit of history. Miami, superpower, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. They have been trying to get back to what they were for quite some time. Indiana, This is the winningest season that they've ever had. The winningest season that Indiana has had prior to this one. Any guess as to what that was, Jaden? Prior to this year, winningest season in Indiana football history.
Well, they made the playoffs the previous year.
Okay, you got the trick question. It was last year.
I had to think about it because I almost split it out 6-6.
Because I started writing up my notes. I'm like, this has to be their best season ever going back to, and I was like, going back to last year. Okay, they were in the playoffs last year. But prior to that, 0 double-digit win seasons in the history of Indiana. Ever. I was looking to see if I could even find a season where they were above 80%, just their win percentage. Forget about overall wins, because you go back too far. They just weren't even playing that many games. It was hard for anybody to get to double-digit wins. 1967
Oh, my God.
was the last time, prior to the last 2 seasons under Signetti, the last time they had a win percentage of 80% or better. 1967. They went 9-2 that year. They lost in the Rose Bowl to a USC team whose star player was O.J. Simpson.
What a throwback.
I said I was going to give you some stuff you could bring up at the Natty party, okay? Nobody else is going to have this information. 1967. You take the last 2 years out of existence for Indiana. The last year they had where they had any measure of success to this degree was 1967, in a year where they lost the Rose Bowl to O.J. Simpson. The Canes might have just barely made it to the playoffs, but they made it there. And the Canes won their last 4 regular season games by an average of 38-10. That was the average margin of the last 4 games. And they had a hell of a road to get to where they are right now. Texas A&M won that game in College Station. Absurdly windy conditions. They beat the defending national champion in Ohio State. A relentless defense on that side. And Miami matched their physicality and then actually ramped it up a little bit. The Fiesta Bowl, Beck guiding the team to a win against the best offense in college football in Ole Miss. So Miami's had a really impressive resume to get to this point. Indiana, though, has just been mauling teams. They nearly pitched a shutout against Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, 13-10. They have won their last 2 games, Jaden, by a score of 94-25. So this game is so fascinating to me. It is so hard to predict. History would tell you, and Indiana's recent play would tell you, this game is not going to be close. But as much as history can repeat itself, sometimes we overvalue what has happened in the past. Blowouts, Ohio State blowing out Notre Dame, Georgia blowing out TCU. It actually has nothing to do with Monday night at all. Really, it's interesting, it's fascinating, but it has no real relevance. It's not like Miami's going to roll over because TCU got blown out a few years ago. So how much do you factor that in as somebody who is as excited for this game as anybody that is listening?
I told you from the beginning of the playoffs, I think we always play better as an underdog. Not even looking at this year, going into the past recently, we have played better as underdogs. I think it was 2018, 2017, we played Notre Dame. It was at home. We blew them out of the water, and I can promise you, we were not favored in that game. We are always play better as an underdog. We love hearing the chatter. The players go crazy for it. Ruben Bain writes it down in a notebook, everything said before a game. I think the players feed off, whoa, they can't beat this Indiana team. They're going to get blown out. TCU, Georgia. They absolutely feed off that, and I think that's going to bring momentum to them. They really care to win this in their home stadium. They love this team. There's something different about this Hurricanes team that I've never seen before, like as a Hurricanes fan.
It has been a long time since they've had this level of talent. Now, one other quick, interesting side note that you can bring up at the Indiana-Miami watch party you're going to. This is something that Jaden tipped me off to. We were talking about this game a couple days ago. This is not the first time that Fernando Mendoza has gone up against Miami. He was the quarterback of Cal last year when they played Miami. 39-38. Miami won the game by 1 point. Mendoza was okay in the game. He wasn't great. 11 of 22, 285, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Good, but not great. But interesting that And that was not that long ago.
No, they were actually up, I believe, third quarter by 2-3 scores.
I was watching that game, not realizing, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball that Fernando Mendoza is going to become this guy. But I remember watching that game thinking, this Miami team is just not to be trusted. They just played with so much fire last year, and Cam Ward was a magician and able to bring them back. Last note on this game, I think the matchup to watch in this game, it's not sexy, it's not Mendoza, it's not Beck, it's Indiana's offensive line against Miami's defensive line. That is where this game is going to be won or lost. Indiana's O-line from left to right tackle, a combined 171 career starts. That's 34 per man on the O-line. That's a lot of experience. They make zero mistakes. But Miami's defensive front is loaded with talent, anchored by Reuben Bain. They can push anybody around. That right there, your Natty preview for Monday night. Mic'd up, coming your way right after this. This is your Tools Ace Hardware assist of the night. Anthony Black through the trees in Berlin.
Jackson lost the handle, ball deflected off the rim and ended up right in Paulo's hands. Now AB running the floor, and he threw it down on 4 Grizzlies. Anthony Black, an international incident. It's 109-107. Holy smokes.
An international incident. If you're gearing up for game day, Tools Ace is your MVP for grilling greatness. From Big Green Egg to Traeger, they've got everything you need to fire up the flavor. 14 Central Florida locations, including their brand new store in downtown Windermere. Tools Ace is your neighborhood home maintenance expert, the helpful place every night and your best stop before the game. Visit toolsacehardware.com and go Magic. All right, let's hop right to it. Mic'd up on a Friday afternoon as we get you set for an exciting weekend in front of us. Not only do we have a pair of games on Saturday in the NFL, a pair of games on Sunday. We've got a Monday Night National Championship game. We also have a Magic Grizzlies game to get to on Sunday afternoon. So we are chock full of good stuff. Already had one yesterday. The Magic took on the Memphis Grizzlies. That's who they'll play again in London on Sunday. This game in Berlin, Germany, the storylines were aplenty, but what emerged from this game more than anything else, like a phoenix from the ashes, was Anthony Black and the dunk heard around the world. Here's Paolo Banchero reacting to it.
Yeah, well, that was ridiculous. I had the rebound, and one thing about AB is when you see him running that floor, you got to get him the ball because he can do stuff like that on the break. And as soon as I seen him do that cross step, I knew he was going to go up to dunk it. And I don't know why all them guys jump, man. He's not the one you want to jump with, coming down the lane. So I've seen him do that before in practice and in games. And, he's a hell of a talent, man. He can do everything out there on the floor. And he's probably one of the best finishers at the rim at the guard position in the league, in my opinion.
High praise from Paolo Banchero, and he wasn't the only one reacting to it. It felt like the entire NBA world was reacting to this. Candace Parker reacted live in the moment. Here's that.
Obviously right here, but
and this one is,
1-on-4
Come on,
climb.
this poster
Everybody jumped. This is something you put in your basement.
This was Oprah. You get some.
I had to jump up, Grady. I had to stand up and make sure I saw that.
Filthy.
Just ill intention.
What a game.
Ill intention. That's one of the things I geek out about the most. It's like one of the things I love about sports content is iconic athletes reacting to other athletes and the amazing things that they do. It's one thing for you and I to be impressed, Jaden. We could never do what Anthony Black did. That'll never be us.
No, never.
I can barely do that against my son, okay? I'd have to get a 4-foot rim.
Didn't Bianchi school you in basketball?
Listen, no. He did not, but it was the open mic crew at the time.
Right.
So mostly Chris Vasquez schooled me in basketball. But, when athletes that can actually do these things are that impressed, that's how you know it's cool. D'Amico Ryans, he's the head coach of the Texans. They'll be taking on the New England Patriots this weekend, and they are kind of getting screwed by the NFL in terms of the scheduling. They played on Monday night against the Steelers. Now they have short rest going into the most important game of the season. Here's Ryans talking about it.
I'm telling the guys this, man. It doesn't matter. Like, people want to talk about a short week. Oh, you guys had the Monday night, and it's not fair. You can always go back. It's like, man, if I told you at training camp, hey, we were going to have to play a Monday night playoff game, you would win, and then you got a short week to go play New England. You want me to sign you up for that?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm ready to go. Right. So, man, we're ready for the moment, whatever it takes to travel. It can get a little weird. The weather, it doesn't matter. Like, sign me up for playing football in this time of year.
Sure.
We're still in it, one of the final four teams in the AFC. Our guys have worked extremely hard for this moment. We just got to go out and execute again and play good football.
Everybody's kind of up against it if you think about it. Like, the 49ers played on Sunday. They're going to play on Saturday. The Bills played on Sunday. They're going to play on Saturday. So it's really not that different. The Texans played on Monday, and they're going to play on Sunday. So it's really not that different. Yeah. Every team is pretty much so the New England Patriots played on Sunday, and then they play. So they have 1 day extra rest. I mean, whatever.
That's not a big deal.
They get 1 full week, and the Texans get a short week, which I guess is not ideal. But, yeah, what are you going to do, cry about it? So Sean McVay, he has to take his L.A. team on the road to Chicago, where it's going to be 20 degrees and windy. Here is him talking about the weather.
You know how the actual just cold in general in terms of how the ball feels, but last year was a great example of, we had 2 really cold games, but fortunately, Matthews played in these conditions. And so doesn't change. There's a couple things you have to be mindful of, but now you start talking about wind, rain, and how that really affects your footing, stuff like that. But we always kind of adjust and adapt. You know, they got to be able to play in those same sort of elements. They obviously have had a little bit more experience, but we're not going to allow that to be an excuse. And so I think you do have to have a feel, but I think the way that our guys play, I think it suits us well in any sort of conditions, and that's kind of what we've always said.
Stylistically, I'm not worried about the Rams. I think a lot of the problem that teams run into that are from the more fair weather cities that they have better conditions, dome teams that don't even have to worry about that as far as the games they play at home in the regular season. If you're not tough, then that's going to impact you more. If you're a finesse team, the Rams have some finesse ability to them because of the power of and the strength of their wide receiving unit. But this is a team that wants to run the ball down your throat. You think Blake Corum, who played at Michigan, by the way, you think he cares?
No.
That it's cold out there? This is the coldest game in Matt Stafford's career, though.
That is insane, especially Detroit's a dome, so that makes sense. Man.
So he played in the NFC North, and obviously he played in some cold conditions because not all the games he played were inside of that dome. He had to go on the road to play Chicago, to play Green Bay. I'm surprised that this is as cold as it's ever been for Stafford. I think part of it is that those Lions teams didn't make it to the playoffs, so they were playing this deep into the year where the weather really starts to take a downturn. Josh Allen's team is ravaged with injuries. He talks about how his crew recovers from this sort of ailment.
Yeah, I'd like to say it's the love that these guys in the locker room have for each other. Point being Shavers tearing his ACL in the second quarter and playing the entire rest of the game, going out there blocking, putting his body on the line for his teammates while in pain. I mean, that speaks volumes of who he is, but I think that it kind of encompasses this team as a unit, just willing to do what it takes to help this team win football games.
It's going to be a good one. The Bills definitely up against it as far as the injuries go, but I think what you're catching on to here is there's a theme. The Texans have a short week. The Bills have a ton of injuries. The Rams have to play in freezing cold weather. A bunch of guys that are living right now in L.A. Everybody's got a challenge they have to overcome, and the divisional round and in this time in the playoffs is all about who can overcome that level of adversity. I'm ready to run through a wall this weekend, and I imagine that you all are as well. I'm ready to make some picks. We're going to do that coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. More Game On in a moment.